things that I think families with funeral directors in the family know all too well is the unpredictable nature of the work. So there's times where we need to stay late because that's when a family needs to be seen, or when a death occurs unexpectedly, or a funeral that needs to be on a certain date. So those parts are tough on a family. And growing up, Dad still coached basketball and baseball, but sometimes he'd show up wearing his suit and tie, and he'd be pounding in the bases on the ball diamond. And that's kind of right now with my son and daughter in soccer. Every once in a while I'll be in the field in a three-piece suit. So it's sort of part of growing up in a funeral family. So that's a big part of now being president and general manager, is that every single job at the funeral home I've done or still do, that it gives you some empathy for the staff you're working with, and also leads to a little bit more respect, being that you've been in all of those positions. People think funeral service is sort of kind of a thing that is traditional and timeless, but in terms of how we're serving families or what needs they have or what demands are happening, that's really changed over the years, especially I'd say the last 5 years. So we have fewer families having more of a traditional, some might say cookie cutter type of funeral, where the role and the expectations of the funeral director are the same. Now it's very much more personalized, customized on every different service. Families are wanting to be more involved in a lot of the creative process of things, as opposed to just letting things kind of roll out as they used to, with in terms of, okay, the funeral's this day and this time at the church. Do you want one of these 10 funeral card designs, and which of these 2 books do you want? And decisions back when my grandfather was funeral directing were very standardized, whereas now you never know exactly what a funeral is going to involve. And I think that gives enough variety that the job is still interesting every single day, and you get to learn so much from different families' takes on things. So that part's changed, and technology has really made a difference for us. Some people, when they hear tech, they think, well, that'll take the human side out of a job that is very much about empathy and care. But there's a really good blend if it's done properly. Families are busy. I think a lot of funeral planning happens outside of this arrangement room. It's with families. When we see emails come back from them, it's often 10 at night or 11 at night when they finally can slow down and process some things. So technology allows them to have a bit more control over that stuff. So it's just kind of out of necessity that technology's been part of it. And that's just the arranging process. I think grief or death in a family can bring out the best in people, but sometimes the worst in people. I've seen it firsthand in arrangements where, rather than the funeral being discussed, it's sort of the stress of the estate, or Dad didn't have a will, or what are we going to do about the cabin? And so that all compounds into an unexpected death. They have to plan this funeral, but at the same time, they're not sure how to wrap up the affairs of, maybe he ran a business, or maybe Mom had care of a number of different things that they're not sure even how to take care of. So I would say that the stress with families on the estate side can almost be a mental roadblock to planning a meaningful funeral, because they've got so much else spinning in their minds. Trying to alleviate some of that makes a big difference for what we do as funeral directors, to just say, yeah, I've got the answer. This is a way to help you take care of those things. And then they've got kind of a feeling of relief. Now, okay, now we can plan without having to worry as much. So when a family comes into the arrangement office and their mom or dad prearranged their funeral, and they sit down and we can say, yeah, we've got a confidential file here that your mom came in 5 years ago and took care of where, when, how, what type of funeral. I think that's a big part of stress in a family, when they don't know what would be right for their mom mom or dad. So it takes that feeling of guilt or that unknown away, and they can just relax into being more present as a family in terms of just starting that grieving process rather than a stressful start to things.
Right.
That next set of hurdles is settling the estate and what to do and not knowing where to turn or what to look. The traditional approach of funeral homes, and ours included, it was just to do the funeral arrangement. We'd have a list, like a checklist, a paper checklist, and these are some things that you should take care of. And I'd say most funeral homes still are going that route. And that checklist is maybe a great to-do list, but it doesn't get into detail of how. Like, okay, cancel this, cancel that, but who do I talk to? What kind of letter do I write? Where do I even find who to talk to at the air miles department on how to switch things over? So it might be a list of things, but it doesn't give you the actual directions, right? I'd say funeral homes don't necessarily have the experts to do that, or to do it in a meaningful or substantial way. So it's a lot easier to just say, here you go. But I think the families end up still feeling a bit lost at the end. If that's all they're given. It's still a competitive industry. You still have to have people come to you when a death occurs and not the people down the street. You still need to be competitive, be forward-thinking, and have solutions for families. So one of the things that puts us above some of the others in our marketplace is that continuum of care. Oftentimes people come to us, and the reason they've come to us is because a neighbor used Saskatoon Funeral. The word that often comes to mind is they took care of everything, or they thought of everything. So that's the feeling that we want people to have, and that's why they will choose us, is because it takes that stress away. Whenever we do pre-planning seminars, we hit the point home that you've got insurance on your house just in case you might have a fire or flood, or you have insurance on your car just in case you're going to get in a car accident. So you're already planning ahead for things that might happen, but you know you're going to die. So let's talk about the thing that's going to happen, so at least you can have a plan in place for that too. I think we're seeing an increase in questions and people pre-planning maybe at a younger age. There's a definite trend towards people just wanting to actually discuss real things and be more proactive about stuff and not be afraid of it. And really it makes such a big difference for the people that are in the office with us arranging a person's funeral when they've already taken care of all that stuff. So prior to Cadence, pre-planning, very similar to other funeral homes. So we'll meet with the family, get their wishes down on paper, have a confidential file here at the funeral home, and the family would have a file at home. If they have changes they want to make, they'd call us to make changes, and we'd update their files. It'd be a working record of what's happening. And then as far as aftercare goes, we have my mom who runs our continuing care program. So we still have a very human component to aftercare, where we didn't necessarily have the continuing care piece was on the estate side. So we would sometimes have people that need a lot of support, and that's where they might say, do you know like a lawyer I can talk to, or that sort of thing. We have a good network of different legal professionals, but we didn't necessarily have that middle piece of like an actual foot on the ground person or service that would help with the little things that all add up to pretty big things that can be overwhelming for a family. A big piece of why Cadence, for one, that conveniently they're local right here in Saskatoon. So Rachel Drew, who contacted us from the get-go, just had a very compelling story of why she put this program in place and the need for it. And also we could tell that the people at Cadence care about the clients. It's not just trying to get more and more business. And I think, and they've proven that by when they go above and beyond for a family that maybe is struggling with a certain issue or trying to figure partnership, because that's what we're all about at our funeral home. So we wanted to make sure whoever we worked with on that estate and continuing care side of things had that same continuum of customer service that we have. It's been 2 years, so we have families that have had a death in the family, have had our support through Cadence, and then had a second death in the family, so they know the product and they know the service, so they see it as one continuous customer service piece. Also, for the last 10 years, we've been sending out client service surveys, which allows us to do comparisons when we had services or change our marketing or change facilities. So one of the notable things is the follow-up scores on our surveys. So how well do you feel you were supported after the funeral, and rate the follow-up care of the funeral home? And the number of excellent scores have gone up since adding Cadence to our continuing care. So you can see that it's being absorbed in terms of people's overall satisfaction with the service they're providing or being provided with, which then in a way it comes full circle to increased calls coming our way versus to our competitors. So it just made a lot of sense that way. Funeral directors are kind of born and bred problem solvers. They want to help, they want to make things easier for people, but they've kind of felt like that estate side is a black box that they don't know anything about, and they can just say, well, I think this, or you might want to go see Service Canada about this. Through no fault of their own, we can't know everything, but to have just a solid resource and a solid team to hand the family off to and say, I'll be sending you an invite to get connected with our partners at Cadence, and they'll help you with taking care of all of the estate side of things. It just gives that funeral director that feeling like of confidence that they've solved a problem. And for other funeral homes, I would say it takes a little getting used to. Funeral directors are very protective of their families and who they refer them to. Once the funeral directors start hearing the feedback from the families, then it's a no-brainer. It's like night and day in terms of a way to take care of things. But it also gives a feeling of control and the ability to do things on their own timeline. And sometimes there'll be more than one family member that is taking on that task, so they at least have the ability to collaborate a bit. I guess it's the comprehensiveness that's the biggest thing. Is there's not that feeling, am I missing something? So our vision for the future is lots of innovative ideas in terms of developing a more collaborative approach to funeral arranging and having the families be able to access those tools after hours. So just a very much more client-centered approach to funeral service in general. And then just embracing technology, but not to a point where it's replacing that human component. One piece of advice I'd say is to use the tools that are out there and dive into